afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Propagandacast State of the Balance, first one in the year 2017. And what then has since changed since, December 2006? Well, not so much in a sense, really. I mean, the Wehrmacht seems to lately sort of gone more heavily in again, trying to get Tier 4 to working. We're seeing more Panther, Sturmpanzers, Panzerwerfers, of course. You still get Tier 3, where overall it's sort of largely Ostman's and Panzer Force at the moment. The Stuk has rather fallen to the wayside, despite being in most cases a very good choice sort of dealing with Allied armour. But actually, we started with the Allies there, just a quick note there. But I mean, for the Americans, more lieutenants, more M20s, air half-tracks, 50 caliber, so primarily still go for Captain Stewarts. Mortars, pack houses, occasionally some use them. Primary doctrines are still heavy cavalry with Pershings and Rangers. Some do go for tactical support, and some go for some other doctrines there. Rifle Company, while seeing a small brief glimpse there in December, hasn't really seen much usage there. And beyond that, I don't think there's so much else to say about the current state of the American sort of metagame now. I mean, sort of very much the same, with again exceptions there for more lieutenant play. Some go for all three tiers, some go for majors. In that regard, we are seeing more Shermans as well. We're seeing a few tries Scots and some Jacksons. I mean, generally, there's some players will just go for Jacksons, despite it not being a good idea at those points. For example, you just get a medium tank, going for Jackson there, for example, can be then an excellent choice for you if you just get more medium tanks and just wreck it. But overall, in that regard, the American meta game largely remains the same, of course, with some slight changes there. Again, sort of not too heavy reliance on Pershing, which does make them more dangerous. They can actually react better to you, rather than just seeing them being passive while waiting for the Pershing. So that is something there to sort of keep in mind while playing the rest of the Americans. As for the Soviets, it's largely penal trooper spam, with some conscripts. Conscripts, in fact, made quite a comeback here lately. There's a lot more players going for conscripts. They sort of realized, oh, right, they're actually pretty good if you just know how to use them. So that's that. T-3476 you see a lot of. And so on there as well. H-16 spam is also very popular, as it is, well, very good, really. And in that regard, the H-16 is very much still overperforming. High rate of fire, high penetration for a vehicle that is essentially Tier 2 and really cheap and can easily penetrate Panthers and even King Tigers from the front if enough numbers. So in that regard, I still think the H-16 is in need of a penetration nerf. I mean, it rather outcompetes the H-5 in most cases. I mean, it rather needs to, not do that. Otherwise, it just becomes, a bit silly and pointless. That's very much something I do think they need to fix as soon as possible, to be honest. Again, lower the penetration of the H-26. It's either that or they have to up the armor of all the German tanks, just a bit more, just sort of slightly lower the chance they have that one working off. I mean, that could also be an excellent solution, as opposed to just a lot of people would be upset about that, I imagine. A lot more upset than just the Soviets, that is. Doctrine, there's also been a slight increase in people actually trying to use shock troopers, but it's largely, guardsmen, and more guardsmen. Some are also beginning to use more of the submachine guns, but again, that's sort of happening in relation to the increase in conscript usage. We're also seeing more of the conscript doctrine. So, rifle, for example, appears, reserve army sees more appearances, and so does advanced army. So, in that regard, while playing versus Soviets, you do have to be careful. There are a lot of conscripts which can be tricky to deal with, for example, for the Wehrmacht, since even, double MB42 play can struggle with that. So, Panzer Grenadiers, they're sort of rapidly, or Stormtroopers will be one of your better options. They're sort of trying to contain heavy conscript players. Panzer Grenadiers and Stormtroopers, assault rifles, tend to handle those quite nicely. But overall, certain metagame to an extent is rare, but again, it's sort of still heavily centered on penal troopers, who are so far still getting rather, I think, better there with some of the changes they're getting. Perhaps not too good, but at least they seem to be now dropping the P2S upgrade there by in the balance preview build. So that's, I guess, something there. But still, I do think the H-6 is overperforming a bit and does need some work there. Moving on, we got the British, which is, well, it's pretty much the same as last, year. Largely mobile assault, largely land mattresses, largely commandos, largely a lot of sections with Bren guns, armoured cars into Cromwells or Comets. Maybe a Firefly if things go slightly so. I mean, in that regard, there's not really much change within the British because they don't need to. I mean, they basically got the best of everything, in a sense. Again, as some have described it, they're basically the Wehrmacht but better, which is generally not really a good design idea, but to an extent it is true. So in that regard, I still think they need to lower some of the bonuses, then British infantry being reduced accuracy. So again, they actually have to use bloody cover. That's still one of the worst, ideas to sort of come around there in terms of balance. And I still think it needs to be looked into also the Comet. I mean, the Comet is basically at the moment a mini Tiger that isn't doctrinal, which is a really, really bad idea. I mean, essentially, it has almost the exact same stat as the Tiger, except Some of them are slightly less, but again, you can get more than one combat at any time, and it can veterans you up a lot faster than the Tiger, and it has more utility through its abilities. So in that regard, that needs some looking into, to put it mildly. Either that or the Tiger needs to get a lot better. And which one do you think is more likely to happen? I don't think it's buffing the Tiger. At least, there'd be a lot more complaints. Then, of course, again, there's going to be complaints if you nerf the comet, but again, you're not going to get all 3 allies complaining about that one. So that's, all 3 allies sort of groupings there complaining about that one. So that's definitely a bit worrisome there. And again, they just need to learn more of the doctrines overall. I mean, they still pretty much just tend to use sort of very few things. I do think the land matches needs a bit of a nerf. Primarily just say, well, make it more expensive or make it slower. One of those two things, I think, is rather the key there. Beyond that, there's not much else to say about Brits. Again, they are largely the same as always, and I don't think there's going to be any huge changes there until the Wehrmacht and the Oberkommanders could sort of really challenge them in other directions. Again, the armored car getting nerfed there, for example, I think will do a bit there. They also seem to have, buffed the universal care, which I was a bit worried about. But yeah, the armored car there. So again, with that one less strong, there might be some changes there to how the British play. Moving on to the Axis, same old there to an extent. Oberkommandwest is still very much focused around scavenge. We see some fortification there, though primarily for the howitzer. Not really for much else, which is always one of those things that strike me sort of weak usage of it. But, most go for Belgrave headquarters. A few elite, go for mechanized regiment, Luxus and Pumas, and can do all right with it. We are seeing more Panther usage there from the Oberkommandwest, though of course you still get the ones that sort of go for Panther Force no matter the case. I mean, the rule of thumb is, if you have an advantage, go Panther Force, otherwise go Panther. And of course, if they can use the Panther, they're actually dangerous. If not, not so much. Another sort of, I think, bigger change to this, there's more Oberkommandwest players beginning to use Obersoldaten, and lastly, they're also performing better. We're also seeing some who instead use Panzer Fusiliers there, which can also be quite nasty. So there are some slight changes in how the Oberkommandwest, proceeds with the game, but there still tend to be lots that go for Belgrave headquarters. 1-9 infantry gun, even it's not going to be, huge help. They'll just go for it, automatically. Some are beginning to use more machine guns to try and contain enemy infantry movements, which does help. But overall, again, doctrinally, it's very much centered around scavenge, spare cuts for a command Panther calling, and when it'd be easy just to go for a regular Panther with some upgraded Obersoldaten and support it. So, I mean, there are some things there, again, where the Oberkommando sort of meta game is a bit weird, to be honest, and isn't, I think, quite thinking it through, to be honest, but that's common for the meta game. I mean, a good rule to think about the meta game, to understand it, is it's basically like a big dumb beast. It's got a lot of strength, has some cunning, but it's not necessarily the thing that actually thinks the most through, and it also suffers from severe tunnel vision, so it'll just automatically assume that everything else is bad when it just decides it. So, I mean, that's a very good thing to keep in mind about the metagame, unless in a working game. If it's a badly designed game, there'll be issues there, but Company Heroes, I think, does have a lot more range than that, so in most cases, there will usually be other things to explore. I mean, again, looking at all the good abilities the allies are ignoring, I'd very much say, again, that it sticks to Company Heroes too. Moving on to the Wehrmacht, I mean, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of Panther play, more of it, Panther Force, Ostwinds, doctrinally elite troops, Lightning War, some assault support, not so much else there again. And again, some go straight for the tier 4, but again, it's one of those more risky movements. You're generally better off going for tier 3, then into tier 4 if you really want Panthers. And I still think overall the Wehrmacht Panther and overall Wehrmacht Teching needs some work. The issue with the Wehrmacht really is they have to pour so much resource, time, and attention into taking up. It really puts them at a disadvantage, and they just don't get any benefits from it. And again, yes, the armor doesn't really compete. I mean, overall, it still suggests, a lot of their veterans' ability to change to try and, mechanically support, combined arms. Infantry get bonuses being near tanks, tanks get bonuses near being infantry. I mean, that I think could do a lot there for the Wehrmacht, just give them a bit more of an edge. Say tanks get, 5 extra range, which means they can sort of compete better versus other medium tanks. I mean, all of a sudden, a Panzer IV is going to have an edge there for someone supporting infantry versus a Cromwell, Sherman, T-34s, all that there, which again in most cases otherwise easily outperform, but again it would require a bit of skill, working them together, which again, seeing as how many Americans use combined arms, is apparently the most difficult thing in the world. So I mean, there's a lot there, to sort of consider, but again, overall, I do think they also need to sort of buff some of the stuff, and particularly the Wehrmacht Panther needs something extra in that department. They really, again, just sort of need to look into the Wehrmacht tech instruction a bit, sort of, how the vehicles pay off, because at the moment there's a bit of a discrepancy there. basically result, of allied power creeps. And obviously, some of the allied stuff needs some nerfs, but at the same time, they do need to buff some of the Axis equipment. In particular, I think the Panther, simply because, it's not bad, but it's not good either. And that's the problem again. It's a tier 4 unit you have to expend so many resources into, and it's not good. It has to be. Compared to Comet, which can usually get out like several minutes before Panther, and that thing outperforms it massively. So, there's definitely some room there that needs to be sorted out there. And again, also considering how much utility the Comet has compared to the Panther, and it almost has the exact same stats, except in some cases just notably better. So, there's definitely some work that needs to be done with Wehrmacht Tier 4, even a bit Tier 3, and just sort of think the veterans. There needs to be something that mechanically support the whole idea of combined arms, because they keep claiming Wehrmacht, at least the talk is the Wehrmacht is supposed to be on combined arms, but mechanically it is not supported. And you rather need to support some things like that in the game, otherwise it just doesn't quite work out, when otherwise everybody else just has better statted everything. Then you need to sort of enforce it mechanically, so that way they have an advantage when they're actually working the units together like they're then supposed to. So I think that's sort of the trick there for the Wehrmacht down the road. So, there you go. Hope you enjoyed this state of the balance. There's also a bit, in the balance preview mod, but basically they reverted a lot of the light vehicle changes for no reason, and the penal troopers have lost the PTRSs. So that's largely it there, really. That's largely it. Also, the T70 got a better veteran free bonus to again encourage longer term there, but they're still not really doing anything about the Axis, not having the same thing on a lot of their stuff, which I do find is a bit weird with their vehicles and tanks, but there you go. Anyways, this is the first state of the balance for the year 2017. Hope you enjoyed and learned something. Again, sort of prepared your head for the battles ahead, and of course got some thoughts on balance. What you think need to be buffed, nerfed, sign off in the comments. Let's get a discussion going there. This is Imperial Dane signing off, and thank you for watching. Hope to see you all for another video. Cheers.